Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm in a local woodland today for a hot tent camp. This will be the first hot tent camp of the season, so I'm really excited about it. But we do have a lot of work to do. I'm gonna try to find a nice spot with some really pretty bed of autumn leaves to pitch the tent. And then I've gotta collect a ton of wood for the stove. Then I'm gonna make myself a nice meal, and we should be in for a really cozy night. Let's find a spot to pitch the tent. Well, I think I found it. That didn't take long. Oh wow, look at this gorgeous bed of leaves. I don't know if it's showing up on the GoPro, but I'm surrounded by oranges and yellows. So I've got an orange yellow canopy above me and a beautiful flat bed of autumn leaves. I think this is the spot. Let's get the tent set up. Alright, found a perfect spot. I really hope the camera is doing this justice. I know the white balance sometimes has a difficult time with all the oranges and yellows, but this is like a painting. I'm so excited. So I'm just going to go through, look for any branches that may be under the leaves because it's a pretty thick bed, just to get those out of the way, and then we'll get this tent set up. Yeah, this is a perfect bed of leaves, but it is thick, so there's tons of stuff underneath it. So I just need to make sure I don't puncture the base of my tent. I'll be using a footprint anyway to help out a little bit, but I just want to get rid of as much as I can. What a stunning spot. Look at the colors. Such an incredible canopy of leaves above me. You can actually buy a footprint for this tent, but I prefer to use the DD Magic Carp just because it perfectly covers just the sleeping area and leaves the stove area open, which is nice. Well, that was a dumb mistake. I had set down the stove when I set down my tripod to film myself. I picked up the tripod, but I forgot to pick up the stove. So that was a really silly mistake. Luckily, I knew where I set up that first shot, and I only had to walk, I don't know, about half a mile or so it wasn't too bad. Oh man, that would have been bad if I lost my stove in the woods. Oh man. That could have been so bad. I'm so lucky I found that. I would have been pretty upset. I probably would have canceled the camp and just looked for it all night. Whew. Yeah, so I guess I set down the bag when I set down the tripod and I wasn't thinking, and I walked away from it, and then when I picked up the tripod I just forgot to pick up the stove. I mean, it's fairly small, but it is in this bag, so it was pretty easy to spot. I should have just tried to stuff it into my pack, but I didn't want to accidentally crush the pipe or anything like that. In any case, back to setting up the tent. There's a big vent underneath. So this just kind of props it up, keeps the rain out, but also gives you quite a bit of ventilation. Could just cut sticks to length like I do with my backwoods bungalow, but I have a ton of wood to still cut for the stove, so I'm just going ahead and using the poles that you can purchase, which are set to the perfect length, so it makes it really easy. Just going to go ahead and open everything up at the moment. So it's actually got 3 entrances. One where the stove goes this side, and then the front side under the awning. So this actually opens up as well. And this is where the stove goes, and that door opens so I can feed the stove at night. Glad I'm gonna have netting tonight. I've come across so many spiders under these leaves already. So even though it's getting chillier, the spiders are still in full force. All right, so this is where the stove's gonna go. I need to go ahead and get a drink of water. I'm actually working up quite the sweat. It's gotten chillier, but it's not very cold. I think the low is just gonna get below 5 degrees Celsius tonight, so that's what, like low 40s. It's not gonna be too cold, so I might end up keeping these vents open for quite a while until the temps drop more. All right, I can't waste too much time. Sunset's around 4 o'clock now, so I only have about an hour and a half to get the wood stove up and get enough wood, so I've really got to get a move on it before I lose the light. I think I'm actually going to close this too because, like I said, there's so many spiders out right now, it's crazy. Just get my gloves, built knife. I did bring the big saw with me today because I do want to get a few big pieces just to keep the wood stove going later in the evening so I don't have to keep popping in smaller stuff. So most of the stuff I'll cut will be, I don't know, about yay big because it is a small stove. But I do want, like I said, some bigger pieces, so I brought the big saw and the axe so I can get a couple big pieces to keep the stove going later in the evening. So before I collect any of the wood, I'm going to go ahead and get the stove up, and then we'll start collecting wood before the sun goes down. Actually going to go ahead and take my coat off. Stovepipe and stove. I love how small this stove is. I could have actually fit it in my pack, but it does get quite dirty. But look at that color. So I've had this for a year now, and once you use it a bunch, titanium develops such great blues and purples and whatnot. So cool. God, this stove is such an upgrade compared to my old one. Look at that color. This is the only thing with this stove. You really got to make sure you don't misplace these, or you're not going to be able to attach the stovepipe. Got to make sure you have gloves for this part. And you just put the rings on. All right, all done. There it is. So we've got the stove in here. So I'll place the wood around it, and then I'll open that door in the evening just so I can feed the stove and cook and everything. Yeah, all set up. Gosh, look at it. I mean, it just blends in perfectly. Such a fantastic tent with so many ventilation options. If you've been following my channel for a while, pretty much most of my hot tents were with my old Polish Lavu, which is what I used for years. It was only last year that I upgraded to a more modern tent and stove. So that's a titanium stove that actually flat packs. And then this tent is much larger with, as you can see, way more ventilation points. So unlike my Lavu, which I had to pretty much wait until it was below zero, or I would just melt if I was inside that tent, this I can actually camp in even when it's not that cold, which is awesome because I can just keep this side door open and vent the majority of the heat. So it makes for a super versatile hot tent, which, you know, you could close that flap and use it without if you wanted. It's like basically this portion on this side is like my backwoods bungalow, almost identical, just bigger inside. It's a true two-man size, but this has that additional portion, which is awesome. Such a fantastic tent. Really excited for this first hot tent camp. I love hot tent camping, so this is going to be fun, but it's getting late. I do need to stop rambling. We've got less than an hour and a half before sunset, so I need to get wood, and I need to get quite a bit of it if I'm going to keep that fire going throughout the evening. So this is perfect. So this will be one of my big pieces. This is huge. So I'll be able to take a few pieces from this guy and split them with the axe, and those will be my bigger pieces that I can use later tonight to just feed the stove every once in a while. So I'm gonna take a few pieces of this one, and then I'm gonna get some smaller stuff together and start cutting everything up. That's why I like to bring this big saw with me when I'm hot tent camping, just because it makes it really easy to get these bigger pieces. Alright, so I got my first piece, perfectly dry and rock solid. So I'm going to cut a bunch of them to about this size. I'll probably leave most of them. Once I have a good bed of coals, I'll just stick this whole round in, and I'll chop up a few with the axe for earlier in the night. Alright, so I'm not going to bore you with all of this because this is going to take quite a bit of time, and I don't want to be fumbling around moving the camera. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this done, and I'll get back to you as soon as I think I have enough wood. So again, I'm doing them about this big. right, this is a really good start. Time to get this back. So I just have a few really big branches that I brought over here. I think I should be fine with what I have, but just in case, they're really close to the tent, so I'll be able to grab them if I need more. Well, it is 4:10, so about 5 minutes until sunset. I think I have enough wood. I've got a few big rounds, like I said, which I'll use later in the evening to keep the fire going. But I believe I have enough, but I do need to organize it and get the hardwood separated from the softwood and separated a bit by size as well. When you're cooking with a small stove like this, it's really good to have a mix of both. That way you can regulate the temperature of the stove a lot easier and set it up so you don't have to mess with it if you want to throw in a big piece of hardwood or something like that. I'm going to go ahead, probably put the larger stuff on this side and then the smaller stuff on this side. I think what I have should be enough though. So I've got 2 rows of really big pieces over here. And again, I say really big, but if you look at the size of the stove, that's pretty much the max I can get in there. I'm going to use the axe just to chop a couple of them up because they may be a little too big to actually get in there. And then on this side, I have 2 rows as well of smaller stuff, and a lot of it is hardwood as well. All the wood's processed. I've got birch bark, I've got kindling, which was really close by, and now I've cut up some of the bigger pieces. So I think we're good to get the fire started. Super excited. Let's get it going. So a lot of little kindling and stuff will just go kind of on top, and I'll slide the birch underneath once it's lit. I'll put a couple pieces of birch in the top as well. Birch bark is such an incredible material. I feel very fortunate that a lot of the woodlands in my area all have birch. It makes it incredibly easy to get a fire started. Thing was roaring in no time. And I have plenty of birch bark next to me as well. It's like having a fire starter at home. And those pieces were wet too, which is amazing. Alright, I'm just going to keep feeding the fire for a little bit to make sure it's got a really nice bed of coals so I don't have to think about it too much when I start throwing other pieces in. And then we'll start cooking dinner in just a little bit. So tonight for dinner, I'm going to be making a soup. After all, we're going into winter soon, so it's soup season. Tonight's soup is actually a Finnish salmon soup. Really, really tasty, so I'm very excited to make it tonight. Well, that was completely unexpected. It just started raining. I already closed the front awning, but I do have this side door open. Not much rain is getting in, but a little bit. I'd really like to keep it open just because I think if I close it, it may get a little bit too hot in here. It's kind of nice surprise though. Got the fire and the rain now. It doesn't get much cozier than that. So I just have to let the potatoes cook through in the soup before I add the rest of the ingredients like the salmon and all that stuff. Typically the back of the stove is where it's going to be the hottest, so if you want to cool stuff down, move it to the front. If you want to heat it up, move it to the back. Really nice to do a hot tent camp. These are some of the more relaxing camps I do. They're definitely a lot more work though. Prepping all that wood is admittedly exhausting. Cutting all that wood to size, because you can't cut it too long. It has to be about yay big in order to fit in the stove, and it can't be too thick either, so. Go ahead and add some warm light throughout the tent. All right, here it is. Ooh, that is way too hot. Cutting board. Perfect. All right, here it is. Finish salmon soup. This soup is amazing. It's super hearty. Carrots, potatoes, leeks, and then big chunks of salmon in a cream sauce with dill. Oh my gosh. You just can't go wrong with this soup. So I highly recommend it. As always, the recipe for this dish will be on my website, goingsoloutdoors.com. So if you're interested in this, you can go ahead and check it out there. Or you can just look up online, Finnish salmon soup, and there should be tons of recipes. They're all pretty similar. First bite. Oh my gosh. Please try to make this. If you're not a salmon person, I totally understand, but so I usually use vegetable stock instead of fish stock, but with vegetable stock, this isn't very fishy at all, and salmon's kind of a neutral thing, so it just takes on the flavor of all the other ingredients. Fantastic soup, though. In any case, I'm going to go ahead and tuck into this. I probably need to stoke up the fire again. As you can hear, the rain is off and on. Sometimes it's actually quite heavy. I had to kind of move the wood over a little bit, but for the most part it's fine. I'm trying to use the bits on the end. I haven't really touched any of my big stuff yet. I'm saving that for later in the night when I just don't want to mess with the fire at all. I'll get back with you in a little bit. You should try this. Well, dinner was fantastic. I just stoked the fire, and pro tip for anyone, if you're looking to clean a pot, just add some water to it and then boil it, and the boiling water will just circulate and clean the pot for you. Dump out the water and it's pretty much perfectly clean. You may just have to wipe it down a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit more organized, get my sleeping bag and stuff out, and settle in for the night. Absolutely love this sleeping pad. Alright guys, bed's all set up. So it's actually only 7 o'clock. The nights are starting to get really long. So for dessert tonight, I have a little bit of whiskey. Since I was bringing a ton of heavy stuff as it was, and I brought an extra 2-liter thing of water, so I was trying to reduce some of the weight. So instead of a beer, a bit of whiskey. Cheers, guys. Oh yeah, that'll warm you up. So I probably have at least a couple hours before I go to bed. So I'm just going to relax, have my drink, stoke the fire up again, and then maybe read a book for a bit and just enjoy the crackle of the fire. So I'll get back with you guys probably right before I go to bed. I absolutely love hot tent camping. This is so cozy. This is one of the reasons why I really enjoy it when the temperatures start to drop. If I'm not camping in the snow, this is a close second. It's just so incredibly cozy. If you haven't tried it, I highly recommend trying hot tent camping. It can be a little expensive to get into, primarily because of the stove, depending on how much weight you want to carry, but it's well worth it. Back in the day, when I first started hot tent camping, it was a lot cheaper, so I had a Polish Levu, which was a military surplus, teepee-style canvas tent. That was only like $30, and I had a G stove, which was a tank of a stove, solid steel, didn't flat pack or fold down very small, but I used that for years. I actually used that up until last year when I got this stove, which is a titanium stove that flat packs, and it's significantly lighter. It's only around 5 pounds, but you don't need that to actually get started. So you can get a heavier stove, and then this tent, which is a solid big 2-man tent with a completely separate area for your wood stove, is only 100 and something. So I highly recommend this. This is the Pomali Stove Hut 70. I think it's version 3.0. I absolutely love this tent. I've had it in pouring rain. I know the original ones, I think, had some issues with it, but everything's taped, and I've had it in pouring rain and have not had any leaking so far, which is fantastic. And it just has so many features that allow you to actually use a hot tent in pretty much every season except summer, I'd say. Unless you wanted to just use it completely open, then you could probably get away with it. But it's so cozy to be in here with the stove. So I highly recommend it if you haven't tried it yet. Alright, so I think I'm just going to go to bed. I'm just going to sit here, just listen to the stove, and get to bed. I'll catch you guys in the morning. Good night. Good morning. Oh. It is 7 o'clock on the dot. Pretty good night's sleep. I actually woke up as the birds started chirping in the forest, and I had some kind of animal. I would typically think it'd be a muntjac, but it actually sounded more like a pig just over here. So once I get out of the tent, I'll have to go check that out. But once I started moving around, it scurried off. In any case, overall, good night. As you can see, I let the fire go out. That's why I like to bring a thick enough sleeping bag just to stay warm and not have to worry about feeding the fire all night. But I forgot to blow the candle lantern out, but it actually stayed lit the entire night. The wicks burned out, so it's very tiny, so it just kind of kept purring along. But it's nice because it provided enough light for me to see this morning. It's starting to get light out, but it's still a little dark for the camera maybe. Annoyingly, I can actually hear a road. There's a road about 2 miles away, and because the forest isn't really active at the moment, it's so loud. In any case, I'm going to get the stove going again and make coffee. I closed the net last night because spiders were out like crazy last night. I did really well on the wood.
As you can see, there's a ton of the hard stuff left. It burned a lot longer than I thought, so it probably didn't need to do as much work. I got away with just using this kind of stuff, so next time I won't cut as many big pieces. Before going to bed, I cut up a bunch of small stuff from these guys over here. So that should be nice. I was going to use matches, but they're somewhere in my bag and I just don't feel like digging them out. I have my knife here, so I'll just do this again. It's simple enough. Alright, we're good to go. I brought the Trangia also in case I didn't want to mess about with the fire. Ooh, it's nice and toasty, but it will get hot quickly, so. What a fantastic morning. This is the biggest Frost River bag I have, and what I love about it is it's big enough to pack a winter kit, especially because your tent or whatever you're using, you'll pack on the outside of the pack, so it leaves the entire inside of the pack open for, you know, all kinds of stuff, as you can see. And the axe even is on the outside of the pack, and these pockets hold quite a bit as well. Didn't even need to bring my puffy, but I use it as kind of the back support. Alright, pretty much all packed. Just gotta get the last few things in the stove. Such a pretty spot. These leaves are incredible. I hope it's showing up on camera. It kind of looks like it is. It looks a little duller though on the screen, but I mean, it's just a blanket of orange and yellow. It's amazing. It's really unfortunate I can hear the road today, and that road's quite a far ways away. Alright, bag's all packed. Just gotta put my water bottle in there.
Love how easy these titanium pipes are to put up and take down. It's incredible. That many hours, and this is all the ash that it's left. And these big pieces are only here from the fire this morning. You slowly start incorporating the dirt back in. God, this thing packs down so small. Love it. So I actually had a decent amount of wood left, so I'm actually going to try to go take a second and stash this somewhere. That way if I'm doing another camp anytime in the near future, I can come back and I won't have to cut as much wood. So, because I have a bunch of big pieces left over there, and so if I can stack them right under a tree, it should be good. Just over here, underneath this log, I found a nice little spot to stash all these pieces I didn't use. Look at this is fantastic. Look at all that wood that I didn't use. So, I definitely cut more than I needed, but if I come back for another hot tent camp, I'll probably try to come to this woodland again. That way I don't have to do as much cutting. So it's nice. It's got a nice little barrier on top, and I put a couple pieces just to kind of protect the others. So I'm just gonna throw some leaves up on it to protect it a little bit more, and then yeah, it should be good for the next time I come. Love that you can pack your entire bag and then do the tents last. All right, leave no trace as always. As you can see, you can kind of still see the footprint. That's just a bunch of dry leaves because everything else was wet because it rained a lot last night. So that's where I was sleeping. That's where the stove was. Over there is where I buried the ash. Can't even tell I was here. Such an incredible spot. An amazing canopy of beautiful leaves above me. Really, really cool area. What a great camp. Really love the first hot tent camp of the season. So cozy, and that unexpected rain made it that much cozier. Really enjoyed this trip. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and sign out here. I only hiked about a mile into this woodland, so not too far. For my next camp, I'll be back in the mountains, hopefully with the new ultralight tent, which I'm extremely excited to check out. So that should be a fun camp. Hopefully you liked the video. I really enjoyed this trip. If you'd like to see me do some more hot tent camps, just let me know down below in the comments. Also, if you have any questions, just leave them down below as well, and I'll catch you on the next one. Please like, share, get outside. Later.